Hello, hello.
Hello, happy Monday. Welcome
Happy Monday,
everybody
world.
to
All
Divine
right,
Masculine Mondays here
let's
with
go.
John Transcend and myself. I hope you're doing well wherever you're coming from today. We have this now on YouTube as well as Facebook. So if you're joining us there, thank you so much. And John, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Hello, Instagram. So, Ben, if you're on,
I'm coming
log
on.
on to Instagram and jump on the hot seat. Welcome, everyone. Ben Curtis is officially almost in the house. All right, we're gonna view request. All right. So, welcome, everyone, and Ben. So, if you guys are at home, it's a beautiful Monday, and Mondays are a special day where we get to have discussions and talks around divine masculine, divine feminine, balance, the whole energetic field of polarity and this human experience. So, welcome everyone. Got co-host Ben Curtis
Hello, and I want to
on.
say
We got
welcome to all you guys
LaFox
coming on.
by Landry is here. Jeffrey,
Chris.
welcome.
And so I'm actually in Los Angeles today. We've had a lot of movement in our life. For those of you who've been watching, know that I've been nomadic. And inside of that, there's been a lot of loss, right? We lost our house in Beacon, my father, grandmother. And with those things and with changes and with constant move comes a lot of uncertainty. And one thing I'm noticing as we've come out of a pandemic slash we're still in it and maybe going into another wave, there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of fear. And people are really, we're all dealing with our emotions. I know I still get weird. I now get claustrophobic with masks on, and especially if I'm in a hotel or plane. I've never been claustrophobic before. I get really anxious. And yesterday I was like getting almost aggressive. Like I could feel my body getting like anger, and I had to um like go into my hotel room and just yell. And I allowed myself to do that like safely. Right. And what I realized this was about was that I wasn't feeling safe or secure. And but I was able to deal with it. As soon as I let it out, it was like, here it is. And here's the opportunity to lean in. So I just bring this up because John had an awesome topics today about the 5 F's that have become like a really big thing on this show that we're going to
I'm
go
gonna say
over.
it's like more than just the five F's. It's gonna be all the F words,
All the F
all
words.
the F words,
We're doing the F
F
words
F
today.
bombs today.
Yeah. So we're gonna bring some F bobs in today and just talk about like when inside of this uncertainty, how can we find some freedom? How can we say fuck fear and actually lean into the healing side of this? So wherever you are, whatever you're dealing with today, we'd actually love to know if there's anything that you're really up against today, so that we could go there. You can ask us any question, and that's kind of where I am. So and John's been traveling, going to Mexico, and you're going to be leading retreats now, right, in Mexico.
Got two coming up next month, back to back. So I'm gonna figure out a way to preserve my energy and be able to serve powerfully for all the people. Um, yeah, and Ben will be holding down the fort while I'm gone for the 2 weeks. But today's topic, I want to just dive right in. It's those F words, and the primary one is basically the fight, flight, fright, freeze, fawn.
Fawn.
There's another one.
Fuck.
Fuck. All of it. And why do we get in these states of freak out?
Mm,
Yeah, that's an F word too.
that's
Freak
another
out.
going.
So
Oh, freak
yeah,
out.
our nervous system, it gets triggered whenever someone says something wrong, or um, someone treats us a certain way, even when we're wearing masks. I know that people are starting to feel, some people feel really secure wearing a mask, and
Mm,
others don't like it and they feel freaked out.
Mm.
But it's all in relation to our nervous system,
Hmm.
and our nervous system will give us a check engine light. It'll send us a signal and say, "Hey, like you're good," or "Holy shit, this is not working out." Um,
And
Even
sometimes
when
it'll
you're,
send you that, right? You're
yeah,
probably about to say it, even when you're fine.
yeah. So it just sends you these signals, and a lot of times it happens. A majority of the time, this happens when we're in close, intimate relationships. Man, that's like my biggest test button
Mm.
is when I'm in these intimate relationships, and you get out of the honeymoon phase, and then there's these triggers that get set off.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about all those F words, how they come up, why they come up, and how do we navigate around them. So
Yes. And I just, John, can I jump on something there?
yeah, let's do
You
it.
already, you already got me going. I see Jeffrey talking about second nature in Canada. So Jeffrey, I would love to hear how masks and that is affecting you and the men in your life or the people around you. Now knowing that it's coming back in, right? We may actually be working masks into our culture like China has. But aside from masks, John, you said something really great, and you said that I want to point at great because I hear it all the time. It's like inside relationships, that's where I feel most challenged, right? And I think all of us do. And one of the things we're looking at is our relationship with ourselves. So the reason we often get challenged in relationship with another is because it reflects something in us that we're not able to see, not willing to see, or don't want to see. And so at some point, it all comes back to relationship with ourselves. And in relationships, if you're having issues, like welcome to being human, right? That is the greatest place where you get to deal with them. Like a relationship gets to be a mirror for you, and you get to choose what kind of relationship you're in. You know, you can choose the people you're with. So that's where you do have power, and you can start to work on your relationship with yourself. um Now, how the hell do you do that? You could do yoga, uh you can meditate, but often when you get triggered, what do you do then, right? That's the time when it feels most scary. And Sorry, I just got a notification. um so how do we deal with that? And that's what we're going to talk about: fight, flight, fawn, freeze,
Freak out,
freak out,
fear,
fear,
fuck.
fuck.
um,
That's right.
so if you guys are at home, um, give us one word or a scenario that you're facing up against,
Of all
or
those F's.
yeah, anything, any issues that are popping into your mind that you may be exploring right now
Mm,
or
mm,
have dealt with in the past, and
mm,
we'd love to dance with it and see what's going on.
mm.
You don't have to go into detail. Just give us something, anything that you're working through or worked through in the past. Um, but for me, I know I'm pretty much a peaceful guy, like super zen almost all the time. And when I get in relationships and we've passed the honeymoon phase, there comes the fights because
Mm,
there's always this kind of like an addictive quality to being always being around each other and not
mhm.
setting the boundaries up front. So then boundaries get encroached upon. So
Enmeshed, crossed over.
enmeshment traumas begin to arise.
Mhm,
So one person will try to push away, the other person may freak out that they're being pushed away. So there's always this fear of abandonment,
mm,
or a fight will take place. So that's fear, that's fright. There's also fight. And in those scenarios, sometimes I catch myself being frozen, not knowing what to say because it's all overwhelming. And so my biggest takeaway from any of these scenarios has been just to really, when I'm in fight, flight, freeze, fuck mode, it's just to breathe through it. And breath is the most important element that we can bring into our bodies. Without the breath, we're dead. So whenever we're
and
feeling, yeah,
you don't
go
have
for
to think to breathe. The
it.
good
Yeah,
news is you already do it. But if you can remember to breathe, man, is there
Yeah.
power in that?
And there's a
Um,
lot of power in that pause. The
mm,
power is in the pause, and just to take a step away from the F
yeah,
bombs and
yeah,
just let it settle,
yes. And
feel
that's
it,
why
feel
we
it.
meditate. That's why I make myself meditate. I have a commitment to meditate because it builds in that pause. Because if I don't, when I'm feeling tight or claustrophobic or unsafe or insecure, despite all this work, like I will take it out on someone, still in that space. That's a reflex of like, I have to go fix this. I have to tell someone. Right. And that's something we've been trained to do, especially in men, but even women inside of this masculine culture, been trained to go do something about it. Right. That's how you take action. That's how you make change. That's how you movements happen. But at the same time, if it's just your nervous system, sometimes all you have to do is breathe and just tend to it. And the things they don't teach you in school are how to deal with yourself and your nervous system. They're teaching you like math and science and history, but they don't
It's all
teach you.
problem solving. A lot of it's problem
It's
solving.
all problem solving. None of it is conflict resolution. None of it is relationships. None of it is emotional regularity. None of it mentions you learn about your nervous system, but you don't learn how to do anything with it. You just say, hey, this is what's going to happen to you. You may experience like you're being chased by an animal and you're going to die, or you may experience you're being, terrified and you want to die. Right? Like either way. And then we look at attachment styles. So consider that someone in your family growing up has trained you because of their attachment styles, their ways of finding security, senses of security. We attach to people to find security, right? But a lot of that is false sense of attachment. So those attachments get broken. That's when we suddenly feel not safe. And if we can look at our attachment styles, that can also be a really, really great tool to accessing the pause, right?
Mm.
I know that I've talked about on the show a lot. My wife, I'm learning to practice start with myself first. I'm learning that I have an avoidant attachment style. I mean, an anxious attachment style, which also as an adult looks like a preoccupied, like you can notice everything that's going on in the room. You can read the slightest change in emotion. And it can come off as someone wanting to control, but what's happening is actually it's just someone trying to stay regulated inside of it, right? Like that's how I've learned to be like on point and anxious, and if something is wrong, I go to it and I cling or I fix, or that's that neediness, right? And then the opposite is avoidant, which is exactly why my wife and I have this beautiful attachment dance, like most couples. Hers is to self-regulate, to turn inward, to leave, to shut down. All of these, none of them are right or wrong. They're ways we've learned to cope, right? And so the work is how to lean towards our partners after conflict resolution. There's actually a really great book called Polysecure that my friend's telling me about, inside of polyamorous lifestyles, just looking on how to find security in yourself and relationships. And a lot of it is these, there's some tending to after uh, an attachment is broken. And the tending can be just breathing, coming back to the present moment, uh, turning inward, turning towards your partner, expressing love, expressing joy, but just checking in with yourself, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of power in that. So that's been something that I've been using as tools to deal with my own thing, and also giving yourself safe spaces to express these emotions, these fox, these fights, these, that anger of the things that you're not in control of. Like I came to a hotel room and yelled in a pillow and then cried and then found out I was also grieving my father, right? Because I forgot that LA was the place where I got the news that he was going to die and I hadn't been back here. And so I couldn't process all of that till I gave myself a safe space to really unleash that. And that all happened yesterday. But giving myself that time allowed me to really be present in the land and see what I need. Um, so that's one example of how I try to deal with some of those emotions, and create pause in my relationship. And John, what are some ways that you find when you're triggered? What are things you found work, or what are things you found that don't work,
Yeah.
you know, it
So
can be either
we're
way.
on the topic of those F words, and I feel like with all those F words, the flight, the freeze, the fawn, there's a way to navigate, and sometimes the navigation is with breath,
Mm,
and other times there's other F words that will help navigate you through it as well. For me, it's forgiveness. So if there
mm,
is a fight, where can you find in your heart to like pause and forgive?
mm,
Because when you don't forgive, the fight will go on forever. And you don't have to forgive like on the spot, but forgiveness is powerful.
mm,
It's the one way to unravel and release that knot, that tension
mm,
that's tying you and attaching you to the story that's causing the fight. So for me, forgiveness is big. Um, I breathe, I journal, and in my journals, I'll forgive whoever it is I'm having um, conflict with, and really communicating to myself first of all. I feel like anything that we're feeling that doesn't feel in alignment, that is poking at us, triggering us, we've got to resolve that internally with ourselves. That relationship to self. So anything that we're feeling, fuck, anger, fight, flight, all that is direct reflection of how we're feeling somewhere inside. Is it a fear of abandonment? And why do I feel fear towards an abandonment from someone outside if I know that I'm fully safe, right? So there's something within me that I need to find peace within, that I'll be okay if my partner leaves, right? So resolving the inner conflicts first, and then communicating outward to others. So breath, self relationship, um, and then communicating outward, our authentic expression. And one thing I want to reflect, and I haven't been in a relationship, an intimate relationship, since Ben and we had a show on this about, I don't know, a few months ago, 3, 4 months ago. Since then, I haven't been in a relationship. I've been single, been doing the work on myself. But what Ben talked
you heard
about,
it here, ladies.
we heard it here, was that Ben and his wife, when they fight, he asks her if they could just take a break, because in that middle of the midst of the fight and the flight is a lot of fire,
Mm.
and they choose to step away from the fire so that they're not throwing more ammunition at each other and really hurting each other even more.
That's
So
so nice, John. I actually don't have it down quite that well. I haven't mastered it that well yet, but
but I know
that's
you
ideal,
said
right?
you guys step away and you
That's
go
what we
outside
try to do.
and you
Yeah.
scream to the to a rock or to a tree or to the sky or something, so that you're not
Yeah.
really screaming at her and it's
Yeah.
not a
Or
personal
vice
attack.
versa. Right. Cause I'm actually, when I get scared, I cling and I don't want to yell. Like I get scared and I want to like hold on and latch. And so hers is actually more to yell, but if I don't feel safe, I will. So we're dealing with that. And we created that pause. Could we have that? Because that's not what I want in that moment. That's not when my nervous system, sorry, I'm going to recreate that right now. That is what I want in that moment. That's exactly what I want to create. And my nervous system is sending me a message of something very different.
Yeah.
Right. So that is the opportunity to do that. And I'm just saying that because I want to clarify, like, I don't have this down. Like this is work in progress, right?
It's all a practice.
For all of us. A
We're all
practice.
navigating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you. And yeah.
Jeffrey commented something really funny. He says, I want to be immature and say fart, but I'll take foretold. I think, to be honest, it's really funny. That's another F word. But fart, if you think about it, if you've got to hold it and you don't want to let it go, it ends up hurting your stomach, right? So that's the same thing with anger. And if you're experiencing anger, you're holding it in. One moment, the wrong moment might be where you explode on your partner.
Mm.
And so
I
find a
know
safe place
people
and
that
let it
don't
go.
fart in front of each other. I think that's horrible. That's like the most crushed self-expression. Not to mention it's not good for your system, like you're saying,
Yeah.
but dude, a good fart can break up a great fight, you know?
Man, wow. This could
That's
be a message to all coaches and therapists. Just if you're in a fight, a flight, a fright,
yeah,
just
just
fart.
let one rip.
Let it
I
rip.
really want to honor you, Jeffrey. I think we learned something new today. My wife and
That sure
I,
as hell made me laugh and smile. So
yeah,
if that doesn't make you feel a little happier today,
Cassie and I love farting
give it
in
a
front of
try.
each other. It brings us a lot of joy, and it's, it happens. So it's, you know, fun is another one that we didn't put in here, but of the F's, like having more fun in your life can create so much of that. So farting, with my partner creates fun. It's hard to take life so seriously when there's fun. And as we become adults, we forget how to play.
Mm,
We forget how to have fun. Even adults who have kids, and sometimes it takes kids to remember, to remind us. That's the gift of children, is that we're so open. Kids don't see, they don't treat people differently necessarily because they have a different color skin or different political background or a different age. Even, I saw two kids yesterday from two different countries at a pool, and they're just like, I love you, bye, I love you, bye. And they just like, the parents were even kind of weird, like, but these children were just open, and we're the ones that get weird, and we forget to have fun and to laugh and to take life less seriously. So that's something I always want to put in, um, as the element of fun. So thank you, Jeffrey, for that.
thank you, Jeffrey. That reminds me of there's a book, and if you guys are at home, if you haven't read this, it's called The Way of the Superior Man
Mm,
by David Data.
mhm.
It's a great book. It's like the Bible for divine masculinity. One of the Bibles, one of the like holy trinities of divine masculinity. And what David Data talks about is the feminine will always test the masculine, no
Mm,
matter what. Just when you
mm,
think everything's peaceful in life and your partner, everything's great, the feminine will just is like a wave, and a wave of emotion will challenge you and maybe not start a fight, but maybe start a fight, but will test your buttons and test the masculinity, the integrity of your structure. And David Data talks about when there is a fight, the masculine, just remember to stand your ground, don't be affected by the waves, and have fun. And he says, just
mm,
take your woman by the hand and spin her around and like dip her or do a funny dance and have fun in the middle of a fight. And
mm.
he's like, see what happens. I thought it was the most beautiful thing. I tried it once and it actually works. Um,
That works.
yeah, it
I
totally
think I'd get
works.
punched in the face if I did that. No, that's not true. But I could see. So go ahead, John.
So yeah,
I have a
that's
thought.
just another example of just having fun because the feminine will test the masculine all the time. And
Yeah.
if we fall into that trap and we play into the fight, then we're just feeding fire into the fight.
Mm,
But if we can add the element of fun, that's where we can provide some equanimity,
yeah.
equilibrium.
Yeah. And playfulness is so good. And I want to say something about that book. A friend gave that to me. It was incredible for me. He has a lot of great metaphors just about masculine and feminine energy and the difference and how to move with waves if you tend towards one or the other. But either way, it's also, I want to say it's slightly heteronormative. So if you're in the LGBTQ community, you can take that part with a grain of salt, but the beauty is inside of there. And the power of listening is also really important. So one of the things I've gotten again and again hit over the head with and still working on in my relationship, the number one complaint from my partner is not feeling heard. And that's what I work on all the time with her. Like I really hear her, yet she doesn't feel heard. So that could be something that she's feeling, right? That I don't have to fix. And it's something that I listen for. So I've asked her, like, what is feeling heard? Like, what would that look like to you? If you were feeling heard. So one of the ways for me, it's one of the things she said was just being still and like not talking, right? Like not
Shut up and
dancing
listen,
in.
right?
Yeah. If you're communicating with me, which is very clearly 101 listen, like your mouth isn't moving. Um, and I had sort of a different idea of listening. And either way, what I got present to was just the power of being, someone needing to be heard. We all just need to be heard, seen, and understood. And if I was to take her and try to dance her around in the middle of her feeling really needing to feel heard, I don't think I would predict that wouldn't go well.
Mm,
And inside of being heard, that's where the fun would come, right? Like if I'm trying to deflect or do anything else, to me, that is not what I've learned is not being present and listening.
mm,
So I love David's idea of that. And like if your partners really needs to tell you something, you might just really need to hear them and not
mm,
do anything. Sometimes just being that space of open is enough. So I just want to say that kind of as a devil's advocate, like there is times when absolutely if you guys are heated about something and it doesn't feel like important and you're just triggered about being triggered and it's ridiculous, like grabbing them and throwing them on the bed. There is that too, I think, right? Like bed play, we love that, like pushing each other on the bed, something that's safe and playful and physical and actually can lead to fun, and it can lead to sex, or you can put your frustration inside of your body, right? In a sexual playful way. But either way, there's ways to interrupt those patterns. I think that's what you were pointing to and he was pointing to, and having fun. And also inside of the feminine, just creating more space for listening. Men, and I'm doing it now, I'm realizing it as I'm saying, I've learned to just speak, and especially as a white man, just to speak and lead. And so I am working on just listening more. And so thank you, John, for being such a great listener and holding space for me here.
thanks for sharing, Ben.
Jeff
One
has
of
some great
the,
questions too.
yeah, let's check out the questions. How do you make her feel not heard? Um, I
How do I
think,
make her feel not heard? Did you want to answer that?
no, that because he's asking you.
Okay.
I think it's when
um,
you talk, if you talk over her, then I'm sure she'll feel not heard. But how do you
yeah.
make her feel not heard?
That's a great question because it's not something I always relate to, right? Like sometimes I feel like I'm really, really actively listening. And so if my partner isn't feeling heard, but usually it's something underneath that. So that's a
How do
good
you show,
question.
how do you show her that you are listening?
I'm fully present. I'm looking her in the eye. I'm dealing with my reactions, right? I'm being responsible for my reactions underneath. And I'm breathing.
Mm,
And I'm just present there, right? And so you'd have to ask her, right? Like what not feeling heard is like, but I think it's I have a defense. There's sometimes a reflex that wants to defend myself, and that is a really strong reflex in me. And so, if I feel like a victim or at the effect of, I can get defensive, and so that's what's happens. Like my mouth will want to open. And what my wife and I also learned as twin flames is often when one of us has a complaint or something we need to say to the other person often has the exact same complaint in the exact moment. Like my wife has come to me to share something with me about me, and I'm like, inside, I'm like, oh my God, I just want to say the same thing to you. But that's not the point, right? Because that becomes my ego about being right. So
mm,
it's just an opportunity to learn and listen. My wife has a hard time with it too, and she knows what I'm gonna say. And I'll even have to say, like, babe, I know you know what I'm gonna say. I just need to be heard. And also, like, are we using each other as the only people for sounding boards, right? It's really healthy to have a community to sound things off of. Like your partner cannot be everything for you. So that's another way, right?
mm. So one of the things that I've learned on my journey, it was at a little, I wouldn't call it a class, but it was called Authentic Relating. And there's this thing that they used to do every Sunday night in Houston, and people would gather, and we would just get into groups and pair up, and they would say, "What person A, you get to share for 2 minutes whatever's the biggest thing that's going on in your heart right now, like
Mm,
the biggest thing."
mm,
That person would share, and then they would say, "Person number two, you get to tell the other person everything that they said word for word." And I would have to say, "So you really have to listen, like word for word." So I would have to say, "Well, Ben, what I heard you say was that your wife feels not heard, and you fully listen, and you're breathing, and you're looking her in the eye. And so really that the practice is reflecting sometimes word for word what they're feeling. Another practice that I learned is to listen to the words, but reflect back what you're feeling or what they're feeling. You know, it'll look something like this. So Ben, I heard what you shared, and it sounds like you feel really frustrated when your wife doesn't feel heard, and you're doing your best to listen to her, and just being able to speak out, like when it's your turn to talk, rather than defend what you need to defend. Just give them that little security blanket of hey, I'm listening, and I can show you that I'm listening by these words. And it's not you trying to prove that you're right or wrong. It's just you're just reflecting that I am listening, and these are the words that I'm hearing from you, or this is the feeling that I'm feeling from you.
Yes.
And people want to be seen and heard because they want their emotions to be validated and felt. And
we
we're
want to be validated and feel
yeah,
validated. Yeah.
we're all here to see people, and hopefully to see them in the highest light. You know, whether they're expressing extreme anger or frustration, can we reflect back in a way that is healthy, so that they don't feel that their fear is not valid? Like, what the fuck? Why are you so pissed off? Like, you're being a woman. So that would be like a wrong approach. But can we reflect back and just be a safe container for them to share?
And you said one other thing I want to say, like, why are you being pissed off? God, woman, this is such a great thing, because there's so much space, and this gets skipped over a lot, that women don't have space to be angry. The men make it wrong or make it mean that they're blah, 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 right? And men have had that space. So that's something I really want to encourage all men out there, is to, and that's something I used to deal with. I thought I used to attract angry women. Turns out I just didn't know how to be with anger, and that anger used to scare me, and that holding space for feminine, especially for anger, is so important, because anger is a great sign that a boundary is being crossed. And either way, if we're trying to be right or defend ourselves or any of that, is all ego, right? Again, it's just about being seen, heard, and understood and validated. And John, those are great tools you mentioned. One thing we're working on, again, putting back in, that I learned in probably from a couples counselor 20 years ago, is just those I feel statements. So when you're wanting to communicate with a partner, saying, just like you said, rather than you do this, it would sound like, I feel like when you, I can't think of anything right now. I feel like when you move my belongings without asking me, that you don't actually care for me. And so that's a way to hear. They can hear, oh, you feel not cared for. I hear you feel not cared for.
Or I know a big one
say.
within relationships is like, I know women will say something like, whenever a man like throws his shoes when he gets home, he kicks his shoes and leaves it there, like leaves the kitchen messy, and the woman's always cleaning up. One of the biggest complaints is the women feels that they're not loved because their work, all that work, and then the guy just mess bomb, right? Boom. So instead of saying, you don't love me because you trashed the house, it's, I feel unloved whenever I've cleaned the house the whole day and you've made it a mess in 20 seconds.
Whether you're a man or a woman,
and whether you're a
clean
man
the
or,
house all day.
so it's putting it in that I feel. And there's a book called Nonviolent Communication.
I was just going to bring that up.
By Marshall Rosenberg, or Rosenthal, or Rosenberg.
I think it's
Rosen something. Rosenberg. Beautiful book. And it just basically tells us how to express what we need to express in the most neutral way, where it's not attacking the other person,
and it's with their feelings and needs.
Yeah,
sharing.
Yeah. So, got some questions.
Yeah.
Jeffrey, would you rather be right or rather be happy? That's an easy one. I'd definitely rather be happy.
Yeah, and that's the big one. I put that up a lot. Jeffrey also asked, what do you mean speaking feminine or speaking masculine. Um, we're talking about masculine, feminine energy, so you can relate to either one, whether you're male or female. The masculine is more structure, order, discipline.
Analytical, logical.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fixing brain, right? Analytical, logical, perfect. And then, John, do you want to describe the feminine?
Feminine is intuitive, em- emotional, more
Mhm.
emotionally driven than intellectually driven or
Mhm.
analogical.
And
Uh,
flowing versus
flowy,
struck.
yeah, flowy, intuitive, um, more of a nurturing vibe.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's the feminine.
Hmm.
And within each human, male or female, we have both. So it's learning to navigate and having both in your toolbox and knowing when to use it to elevate a situation
Mm.
rather than to spiral it down.
Yeah.
How do we keep things flowy with structure?
And chances are, if you've been raised, especially in this American culture, you have been raised with a lot of toxic masculinity. Even women often have to lead in a masculine form. Um, right? Like there's no space for women to take time off, deal with their bodies during a menstrual cycle or even pregnancy, really, right? It's just like you have to just show up and lead, or you have to show up in a way inside of a masculine form. Um, and I won't say too much about it. We'll let women talk for themselves. But
Yeah.
it's something I see, right? And that's inside of the structures we have. So it doesn't create a lot of space for us to find flow. And that's something that was really scary becoming nomadic was we started noticing a lot of our friends and family had judgments about it, about us not being still and not um and actually we found it was scary for a while, but that when we started to find a lot of freedom in it. And I think it really challenges our ideals in a society where you feel like you have to have a house, two cars, kids. And so if you're anything other than that and you start flowing and I don't know where we're going to be next week. My family like couldn't handle that. I have friends that are like, wow, drive me crazy. Like, well, you don't have to live your life that way. I'm choosing to. So it's interesting how we can find it's kind of finding the comfort in the uncertainty. Um, PK Graham, Pat Graham brought up some beautiful stuff here and really shared his heart. So I just wanted to talk about those real quick. One was Pat said, being seen and heard has been my biggest struggle, creating a position where I would just go away or not speak up to protect myself. Interesting that you think you're protecting yourself by not speaking up or going away. Crush confidence and self-esteem in relationships.
Mm.
And recently started to speak up and has started to empower, but not necessarily in being heard, as that I have no control over. Correct. But being empowered by speaking.
Mm. Yeah. And I noticed, I want to just reflect back to PK Graham on that, is that wanting to just run away from it or leaving the scenario. That's the flight. And that's the nervous system saying, I'm not okay with what's going on and I'm going to leave. And how can we find peace in this moment, right? When we're challenged and we want to speak up, but we don't want to like add fuel to the fire and burn the house down
Mm,
with the anger. So it's really just sitting through, breathing, and allowing that the other person's flame to kind of settle a little
mm,
before we chime in with love.
mm,
And that's the
mm,
important thing, is that the other person definitely our partners want to be seen and heard, but so do we.
mm,
And if we want to be seen and heard from a place of fear or anger, then we're going to add to that fuel. So if we can just let that fire simmer down with a few pauses and breaths in between, we can come back with that warm, loving, I hear you. I appreciate you so much for sharing from your heart. You know, I want to share that I'm reflecting and I get that you're hurt or you're frustrated, X, Y, and Z. And then you can share. And what I've learned is asking for consent, just saying, hey, I've heard this, I feel it, you know, I'm deeply hurt when you're hurt. And may I also reflect how I feel? May I have a little space to be seen and heard as well,
Mm,
or just acknowledging like I see you and I
mm,
I feel this,
mm.
I hear you, you know,
And
reassuring them.
recreation.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said a great thing. There's a tool, I've heard it called recreating them, recreation. So if you say, I feel that, or I heard that you feel blank, 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 what could I share what I just heard in that, John?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear that in those moments, right? So you're asking consent already. Can I share what I'm hearing in that to make sure that I'm hearing you, and that actually helps them feel heard. And sometimes I'll say that and the reflection is, no, that's not it at all. Be like, okay.
You're not listening, Ben. You didn't hear
Yeah.
what I was saying.
Yeah, which can be it. And if there's a complaint that you're not listening to, right? Like creating the sense of what is feeling heard feel like for you, because it also could be a complaint that we create in the world to be right, that no one hears us. So we have to be careful about what we put on to other people. But we can say, great, thank you for sharing. Thank you for letting me know that I got it wrong. Well, I'd like to listen. Will you tell me again? Because I really do want to hear this. It's important to me that you feel heard and that I really do hear you.
I, what I'm hearing from this, Ben, is oftentimes when we're not listening, that's our nervous system. Like
mm,
we've got the boxing gloves up in the fight because they're firing at us, and we want to fire. We want to strike back with a nice little a jab or something. So we're not listening, and we want to interject or fight back. And man, sometimes you just have to surrender and receive what they're saying. Hold that space. Let it in, whether it's fire or it's wind or cold or ice or whatever it is.
mm.
Let it flow through us.
And
And
practice holding that space and not taking it personally
mhm,
is also really important.
beautiful. El Eduardo Ruiz 11 says, sorry to jump in late, but I am all for holding space for your partner to release anger and to express it. The difficult part was communicating / resolving the times when that expression compromises the other's values or compromise the other's values or way you want to be loved. So what I'm hearing, Eduardo, is that it's compromising a way that you'd like to be loved by the way that they're expressing. If that makes sense, please
That's what
clarify
I'm
a little
hearing from
bit. Is
that
that
too. Yeah.
so? There sounds like the partner is he's holding space. She's releasing the anger, and some way it's compromising his expression to be loved.
Mm.
Um,
And
Go ahead, Ben.
yeah, I'm also hearing if their way of communicating or resolving actually compromises your values or the way you want to be loved. So maybe their way of communicating and loving and resolving is fighting.
Mm,
Maybe that they enjoy fighting. Maybe that's, and that doesn't actually work for you. Right.
yeah.
So, um,
I don't know that anyone enjoys fighting. I feel like fighting or certain ways of communication is just we're all like sponges, and we learn from
mm,
how we grow up, and we learn how to
yeah,
defend ourselves through survival mechanisms.
yeah,
And as we grow older, we can either evolve from that state or we just that's the tools that are in our belts.
mm,
So as a masculine or just as anyone that's if you're watching the show, you're taking a step into consciousness, personal freedom, right? So how do we evolve from that state of fight with a partner? And that truly is like how can I just take that fire with me? One of my teachers, I took a yoga class, and there's this 75-year-old yoga teacher that I go to. He's like Rafiki from Lion King. He's a super wise guy. And he said, next time you're in a fight with your partner and she's just yelling at you and exploding, just look at her in awe. just like you're looking at a volcano exploding, and there's beauty in the anger that's being
Mm.
released. And don't take
Mm.
it personal. Just allow that beauty to flow like a volcano is exploding,
Mm.
or like looking at a flickering flame that's like a campfire, a bonfire, and
Mm.
just look at it like a beautiful fire, and then respond with love.
Yeah.
And that was one of the biggest takeaways, is to not take the anger personal, because behind every angry emotion, if
Yes.
we can imagine anyone that's ever hurt you in your life, anyone that's in political power that's abused the system or hurt somebody, like the Black Lives Matter, police brutality, anything that's going on, wars, Hitler, anybody,
Trump.
just imagine that they are coping with some shit that they were dealt with,
Mm.
and they are just passing it on, and they, deep down inside, there's a wounded inner child
Mm.
that is just crying to be seen and heard, so that that little part can be healed, so that they can then become peaceful.
Mm.
And it's our job on this planet. I feel with my full heart that our job on this planet is to love ourselves and practice loving ourselves, so that when we are confronted with these fiery situations, that we can show up in love for the other person. And that's it. That's why we're here, is
Yeah.
to love
Yeah.
ourselves and to love others in the thickest and the worst of times. How can we be love?
Yeah. John, you really said it. Thank you for that. And especially the reflection. I think Eduardo just said it here too, that no one really wants to fight, right? It's a taught mechanism, learned, or defense mechanism. And remembered even like Donald J. Trump grew up in an alcoholic home that was really, really difficult and toxic. And I remember one thing my dad said as a bully, like whether you support Trump or not, either way, like he and we all do have like some serious issues that were projected out in our country, right? And yet we forget that this is a human really dealing with something that may not have ever gotten resolved. And to get off of political and into like just humans again, uh one thing my father said to me as a young boy that stuck with me is like bullies are really hurting way more inside than they're hurting you. If they're beating you up, they're beating themselves up even more. And sometimes when you try to fight back, that just puts more salt in their wound and it creates more conflict, right? So this is an opportunity to lean into love. And John, I'm really hearing compassion
Mm,
and forgiveness in your share of acknowledging people who struggle and are in power,
yeah.
right?
I want to reflect something, or just share something, that in those situations where there is that fire and it's like, nobody wants to fight. But one thing that I've learned is maybe even ask a question, like, or just reflect back, like, it sounds like you're hurt, you're unseen, you're frustrated. What else is there?
Mm.
And by just asking what else, it's like, I'm open. Like, give it to me. Like,
Yes.
tell me where it hurts.
Yes.
Tell me why it hurts. And that right there, sometimes they might say, no, that's it. And then the flame is extinguished.
Mm.
And it just kind of melts away.
Mm.
Um, and sometimes that's all it takes, is for us to say, hey, I'm here, I'm listening. What else is hurting you? And for someone to know that you're going to hold that space for them to share maybe one other thing or one other scenario, another what else, um, can really make everything just small and tiny. And the bigger picture is that we're all souls on this planet living the human experience. And that at the end of it all, we don't want to fight. We don't want to flight. We don't want to run from shit. We don't want to freeze. We don't want to fawn. We don't even want to do any of those F words. But yeah, we can learn to listen, have compassion, forgive. Man, that's the tools. So yeah.
Mm. Thank you, John.
Mm,
I think Well, it's about time to wrap up here, but I would just like to say, for all of you who have been listening, thank you so much for joining us. Again, if you're on YouTube, please subscribe. And if you're on Instagram or Facebook, please share this and comment so that we can help get this message out. And if there's one word you could use or one sentence you took away from today, and you're at home watching right now, I would love for you to type it in the comments. Just one thing you're taking away from today. We'll give you all a moment to do that.
All right, I'm going to type in something.
And while John is typing, I'll share. One thing I'm taking away from today is power of forgiveness, the power of compassion, and the power of awe, like being in awe of someone's rage and feelings, and something that could really rub you the wrong way, to be in awe of humanity.
Mine is forgive. I think if we can forgive ourselves internally first, that's like the gateway it's the gateway in the practice to forgive others. And that's the gateway to the universe. And we start here and we start forgiving outward. That's the practice to be in oneness with all.
Yes.
There is no separation. If you're hurting, I'm hurting. So how can we heal together?
Jeffrey said, focusing. Beautiful. Thank you all so much for this conversation. John, I got so much out of this with you today. And CG 420777 says, deeply listening and then answering from a place of love.
I hear you, brother. True. I love it. Thank you all again for joining us for Divine Masculine Mondays. We'll be back next week. I'll be gone for 2 weeks in September. Ben will be holding down the fort, and
but John will be back next week.
Yeah, I might just jump
next Monday.
I'll be in next week, but maybe I'll just ninja my way into the talks if I have a slither of time while I'm out of the country, just depending on the Wi-Fi situation out there. I'd love to join you all and
see what you can create.
Keep this vibe alive.
Yes, we would love that. So please join us again next Monday and every Monday right here on Instagram and Facebook on the Universal Soul Fest page. And again, thank you for watching. Again, just sending love to you all today. And remember, every comment, every like, every subscribe helps get this word out of healing rather than all the other toxic shit out there. So thank you all for doing this. And we'll see you next week. Same time, same place.
Peace. And namaste.
Namaste.